All right, there he is, Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake, Trans-Siberian Orchestra, about a million other bands. Joel, what's going on?
Hey, thank you so much for taking the time out today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I know you got a crazy busy schedule. You just got back from NAMM over the weekend, I saw, and you know, it's obviously it's like a gear trade show, but it's really turned into this event. You know, that people travel from all over the world, really just to, a lot of people just to meet whatever musician. I think it's almost turned into a bit of a fan thing, and all these all sorts of shows around it now, and Anaheim and LA. It's really remarkable what a massive event that it's become over the years.
Yeah, I mean, there's an upside and a downside to it. The upside is that it's fun to feel like there's a community, you know, still existing when you get there. Sometimes, you know, we can feel like the rock scene is like, where is it? And then when you go to NAMM, you're like, here it is, and it's huge still, and it still feels very relevant. And it's amazing how in that little microcosm when you go to NAMM, how I can feel very, very known, and in the general public, like walking around, how I can feel completely unknown. I say it's like so it's a great feeling to have that, and the downside is it's just, you know, over 4 or 5 days, you know, the energy just gets so depleted from being on the whole time. And but yeah, it was really cool. My friend Keith St. John asked me to play at the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame event the night before. I wish I could have gotten out even a couple days earlier to be a part of the event honoring Leslie West. Would have been great. And there was something in Vegas right before that. I had to draw the line somewhere though on it. But did that and did Ronnie Montrose Remembered, which is really cool. Saw a lot of my friends there, and then also sat in with a band that I had played a few solos on their record. A metal band called Leatherwolf, and that was fun. And I did a signing at a booth, and yeah, there you go.
Well, there's so much going on in your world with the new Revolution Saints record that comes out. I believe that's next week. Obviously, you're filling in for Accept later this year, and of course, recently wrapping up the TSO tour, which I want to touch on first, because that just seems to get bigger and bigger year after year. And I know you've said before that people sort of hold that gig in higher regard now, as opposed to when it first started, you know, whatever, 25, 30 years. How long has it been? It's probably coming up on 30 years, right?
Since '98, yeah. So yeah, coming up on it. Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, a lot of the '80s bands or people that are a fan of that style, which TSO certainly has elements of that.
Sure.
You know, we've watched a lot of the iconic bands go into retirement or deal with health issues to the point where it's not really the original lineup up there, or, you know, maybe just a member or two. And so Trans-Siberian being something that's kind of built around the name itself, and obviously is you know, a little bit easier to have lineup changes occur and have it still be Trans-Siberian Orchestra. You know, the production itself is the star of TSO, and that's kind of beautiful because, you know, that means it's going to live on past all of us, and that was Paul O'Neill's vision with that. So yeah, I think it has really risen, like in terms of the way it's viewed. The opportunity to headline arenas twice a day playing that style of music is, I mean, who's doing that? So it's great to be a part of it. I've been honored to be there really since I've been hired. And I've always told people it's a great gig. You have to be willing to work hard. You know, it's not a standard touring schedule. You play 8 shows a week. The shows are a little over 2 hours, 2 hours and 10 minutes, something like that. So on the 2 show days, which are essentially Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you know, you've played 6 shows in 3 days in 3 different cities, and it's a much more of a difficult schedule than, say, being out with Whitesnake playing 3, 4 shows a week or whatever. So you just have to be willing to work hard, and you know, for me, that's never a problem.
Well, and to your point about it really being about the production, the other thing I've noticed is lately, the past few years, it feels like, you know, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of bands that are still doing arenas and stadiums, they seem to have really scaled back the production in terms of pyro and things like that. I mean, there's still bands out there that do it, but, you know, I mean, for example, I'm a huge Motley Crue fan, and, you know, back, you know, they were doing the crazy shit with Tommy Lee's drum stuff and all this pyro and all that. And then you go to the stadium tour and it's really just, you know, a big video screen and stage props. And there was no, you know, there's really no pyro or anything like that. And with TSO, I mean, it's just, at this point, it's the stage show is larger than life.
Yeah, I mean, there's an advantage, in fairness to them, on the stadium tour. There's probably not the ability to do that just because of being able to rig things to the ceiling of an arena as opposed to the open air of a stadium. So there is an advantage to doing the indoor shows as opposed to the, you know, open air in the stadium, where you can have things, you know, come down from the ceiling. Yeah, I mean, our production is something that, you know, Paul O'Neill's vision was bigger and better every year, and to, you know, shock and awe, et cetera. And, you know, for me, it's just a great feeling to be able to be on a stage like that and have that incredible production behind you. You know, obviously it's fun to entertain and everything like that, but it's also really cool that you can look cool just standing there. When you got a wall of flames behind you, you don't have to do all that much to look cool, you know, when that's going on. It's like, wow, awesome, you know.
Well, and I would imagine too that one of the benefits of TSO is that, you know, for most bands, someone's favorite band might, you know, they over tour, they tour every year. So at some point they're like, fuck it, I'm not going to go. They're just going to be back in 10, 12 months. But with TSO, given that it's a holiday themed band, I would imagine that for a lot of families, you know, it's probably really become a holiday tradition, just like, you know, watching A Christmas Story or Elf or something like that, you know?
Yeah, you know, that was Paul's vision, to have this be something that became a Christmas or holiday tradition for people. And it's really fun to just be a small part of watching that come to fruition. And I think we really are ingrained in North America and certainly United States Christmas culture at this point in time. It's, you know, the music, some of the instrumental songs are synonymous with Christmas at this point in time, which is, it's really cool to be a part of. You know, I mean, we did Good Morning America this year on the tour, and then witnessed several high profile covers of the TSO songs, kind of going around. Kelly Clarkson and the Saturday Night Live band doing a cover of it, and, you know, Nita Strauss doing it at the Rams game. And, you know, it's just cool to watch the music kind of take on a stronger meaning attached to the holidays.
I remember hearing this story a long time ago, and I don't even know if it's true, but it's a funny story nonetheless. Of you know, older people would go, they'd buy tickets, and you know, and I'm talking, you know, people in their 70s or whatever. You know, they see the name and they're thinking it's just going to be a traditional Christmas orchestra, and then they show up. And, you know, it's loud guitars and the pyro and all this and that. And they're like, whoa, this is not what I expected. So they leave. Is that a thing that you've witnessed? And if so, does it still happen today, or is everybody pretty hip to it now?
I don't see them leave. I think that, you know, there's something there. This is like the most cliche line ever, and it sounds jive, but it's actually true, that there's something in the show for everybody, because, you know, we see families like 3 generations deep at TSO, and that's what's completely different than playing in a rock band. You know, when you look out, you see the grandparents and the parents and the kids. And the grandparents, they kind of dig the fact that there's a story on the front half. So they feel like, hey, we're getting a holiday story, and this puts them in the holiday spirit. And the parents are kind of like my age, and they're just glad to be there because it rocks. And they're like, this is a rock show in disguise. And
Sure.
The kids, they kind of dig it. Like, we got a lot of young kids there, and they dig it from the visual aspect of it. You know, you've got the video screen, the width of the arena, and, you know, it's snowing indoors, and you've got all the pyro going off, and the laser light show, and us on hydraulic lifts out, and, you know, running through the crowd, playing right to the kids. And that stuff doesn't really exist in a normal rock show. Some of it, but certainly not the going out in the audience and playing to kids. And
Sure.
it's just a very unique show. It's you know, it's built on such a unique model, and it tends to like resonate with people of all ages for different reasons. And that's just, you know, it speaks to the mad scientist, you know, Paul O'Neill coming up with the idea. And I'm sure when he laid that on paper, there was probably a lot of people raising their eyebrows or scratching their heads going, you think that's going to fill arenas? And he gets the last laugh because it fills arenas twice a day usually. So it's cool to be part of it for sure, dude.
Well, moving on, the new Revolution Saints album, Against the Winds, comes out next week. Like we said, that's the project with you, Jeff Pilson, and Deen Castronovo. And this is what, your second Revolution Saints record that you've been on right after, was it Eagle Flight last year?
Yeah. So, I mean, Revolution Saints started some years ago. I don't know the exact year the first record came out, with our friends Doug Aldrich on guitar and Jack Blades on bass. Of course, I was a Night Ranger with Jack when he started Revolution Saints with Deen and Doug. So, in fact, was there when he asked Doug to be a part of it. And so it's just kind of, it's strange how time evolves. Those guys eventually just felt like they had run their course with it and were stepping aside. Doug's got Dead Daisies and Jack's got Night Ranger, and Frontiers and Deen weren't really ready to let it just go away. Deen kind of wanted to have a Mach 2 of this, and they asked me to do it. And I just talked to Doug a little bit, made sure everything was cool there, because he and I are good. We get along great. And he said, no, I was actually the guy to say, get Joel to do it. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. Well, then I don't feel bad about stepping in and doing this, because I think the opportunity to work with Deen Castronovo and Jeff Pilson is something most guitar players would want to do. Deen is an incredible world-class drummer, and he gets overlooked in the discussion of who are the great rock vocalists out there these days, simply because he's behind the drum kit. But his singing is phenomenal, man. It raises the bar on all of these songs. We get these songs in demo form. So there's scratch guitar and scratch, what they call scratch, meaning it's there as a guide vocal and a guide guitar. And then we all do our thing with it. Right. So, it's remarkable to hear how much Deen's singing actually lifts each one of these songs.
Well, yeah, I mean, admittedly, I never even checked out the band until the last single, Changing My Mind, came out. And then I went back and listened to the rest of the discography, and my God, I mean, just blown away. What a hell of a singer Deen really is. And it's kind of surprising that he hasn't, that he never took over lead vocals for Journey. I mean, of course, maybe he will now with all the dysfunction in that camp, but down the road. But my God, what a powerhouse singer he is. I mean, no kidding.
He's a great talent. Arnel Pineda is a great friend of mine and an amazing talent as well, and does an amazing job of fronting Journey.
Sure.
In my opinion, what their reasons are. I know Deen does sing some lead during the show. He does sing usually a couple songs, I believe, during the set, lead vocals, and obviously contributes mightily to background vocals. I mean, what a luxury to have that voice as a backing vocal in your band. So certainly, his talents have paid off for him. Journey is doing incredibly well. I mean, just, the touring success that they've had over the last 15, 20 years or so, really since they found Arnel, has been remarkable. I mean, so I'm really happy for them. I'm friends with a lot of the Journey guys, and it's great to watch them have that success. And so there was a moment where all three of us in 2011, when I was with Night Ranger, the lineup was Night Ranger, Foreigner, which of course Jeff Pilson plays with Foreigner, and Deen with Journey, right? So Night Ranger, Foreigner, Journey. And during that tour, Mick Jones went down, and I actually ended up going through, an extremely stressful 24-hour period of learning the Foreigner set and kind of going on with both bands for a period of that tour. So Jeff and I, we have some war stories to tell of me just going through that, learning that set that one day and going on with them. And, but all three of us toured together for a large amount of time that year. I feel like that tour was a good, at least solid 6 months. So we all got to know each other out there. So when it came time to actually do this, it was nice because we all knew each other from that experience.
Yeah, I had Jeff Pilson on the show about a month and a half ago, and not only is he's a great guy, but his stories, I mean, he's just got some of the most incredible stories out there. I mean, he's done so much.
Now, Jeff is really, I think, a lot more talented than people understand. And I think, like you said, he's a really, really nice guy. And he's got such a long history. I mean, I was a kid listening to him in Dokken, and so when you factor, he's just been so successful with Foreigner touring wise. Again, that's just like Journey. Foreigner's seen so much success with this lineup with Kelly Hansen, and as much controversy has surrounded that with having Mick Jones up there, and then even Mick not there on some shows. They've enjoyed a lot of success in there. They sound amazing, and a lot of these guys have been with it so long that it's like, well, I mean, why isn't that the lineup? Just because they weren't there at the inception of some of the hit songs, that doesn't mean even the original members were part of those hit songs. Mick Jones really was the guy, and of course Lou Gramm, who's amazing and a legend. One of my favorite singers of all time. But Jeff is just, it's really cool for me to work with him and Deen, Deen was a part of the shrapnel scene kind of early on, playing with Marty Friedman and Tony McAlpine. And
that's right.
So, I've been listening to Deen's kind of more technical side of drumming since that same age, right around the time I was listening to Jeff and Dokken. So, a guy like me who's, a little bit younger than those guys, back then that was a big difference because I was like in high school and they were probably in their young 20s and they were famous, right? So it's always fun to end up playing and making music, or working, if you want to use that term, with people that you grew up admiring. And there was a moment where they seemed larger than life, and there was no way in hell you'd ever end up playing with these people. That's kind of been the story of the way the last, I guess about 16 years have gone for me now, upon like joining Night Ranger and working with Jack Blades and Brad Gillis, guys that, that seemed impossible for a kid like me growing up in the south suburbs of Chicago, where stuff like that, I was not from a well-to-do family by any stretch of the imagination. And, it's not like I grew up in LA with, a dad who worked for a record label or was an entertainment lawyer or something like that, where, you maybe had a chance. It's like, I was supposed to have no chance to do any of the stuff I've been able to do. And of course, same deal goes with joining Whitesnake and working with David Coverdale, who's, an icon, and Tommy Aldridge. And, it's really just been the way it's gone, having the opportunity to work with a lot of people that I grew up admiring. And that's not to make them sound that much more older than me, because they were all kids when they were already famous,
Well, before we move off of Revolution Saints, how does the songwriting with that go? Because obviously, the label Frontiers puts together a lot of projects similar to this, although Revolution Saints certainly seems to have a bit more legs and traction than some of the other stuff they put together. But, like, for example, I know on this latest, the Jack Russell and Tracy Guns record that just came out, this guy Alessandro Del Vecchio did a majority of the songwriting on the record. So how does that work with Revolution Saints? Is it somebody else bringing the songs in, or do you guys write the songs together and collaborate together?
It's pretty much been the Revolution Saints formula has kind of been Alessandro working with outside writers, and Frontiers kind of approves songs for the album itself. And then it's demoed by Alessandro, given to us, and the performances are kind of where we lend our personality to it. Now, oddly enough, I actually served as one of those outside writers for this prior to me actually being a part of it.
Oh, so
there was a time where there was something I contributed to Revolution Saints for Alessandro to write to, and I was picturing it being Doug playing on guitar, which is kind of hilarious and in retrospect. And then I ended up being the guy actually playing the parts themselves off of Eagle Flight. And I know the plans are for the next record, I think, to have Jeff and I do a lot of the writing, and they're looking to mix it up a little bit and see if we can take a more active role in the writing. But that traditionally it's been more of a label driven project than anything. And I mean, people can, I guess, say that's a bad thing, but if the music is good and the results speak for themselves, you have to look at eras like Motown as well and go, well, I mean, how many of those people were writing that music,
Sure,
or was
exactly.
the music written for them? So is that entirely, are we going to throw out like anything where that's ever been the case? So certainly a lot of very successful records over the years, and successful music was made that way. So that's the way it's been done. It'll be interesting to see the next one, because I think Jeff and I are going to do a lot more of the writing.
Is there any plans to ever take this on the road, or even just do a few spot dates here or there, or maybe at a festival like M3 or something like that?
It's certainly been discussed. I mean, Deen really wants to do it. I really want to do it. With Whitesnake more or less going on hiatus from live shows at the moment, holding pattern, I guess, is probably a more accurate description. I'm open to anything and everything as far as like getting out there and staying active. So it's definitely something that's been discussed and looked at, and hopefully that can occur. I'm all for it.
Moving on, obviously, you're doing some fill-in stuff for Accept later this year in South America and Europe, and it's interesting how that came about. It was almost really a perfect storm, because Michael Cardelloni hits you up, of course, from Damn Yankees and Lynyrd Skynyrd. He reaches out to you, says, "Hey, I'm with Wolf Hoffman. He needs another guitarist." I told him I have the guy. And then Wolf wants to meet up with you, and he lives in Nashville. At the time, you're out with TSO, coincidentally going to be playing in Nashville, I think, just a couple of days later. So it really, it's almost as if it was meant to be in a way.
Yeah, it all clicked. It happened so quickly, and Wolf is just a real bright, sharp, super friendly guy, as well as being a great player. And it, sometimes you have people make those intros. He connected us. First, Michael hit me and said, "Hey, I'm with Wolf Hoffman." And then sometimes the next thing is like, "Well, I'll connect you guys via text." And maybe that means a week later, or maybe that means 2 weeks later or something, by email or whatever. But it was like literally 5 minutes later, or, not even. It was like a minute later. He said, "Okay, Wolf, here's Joel, Joel Wolf." And Wolf was like, "Great, and blah, blah, blah." I said, "Well, I'm in Nashville in a couple of days. Let's have coffee." And, so, I mean, it was like, we ended up, it was like 2 days later or something like that we were all set and ready to go with this, because it made sense for both of us. They needed somebody to fill in for Phil Schaus, and I needed something to get out this year and play some of the bigger shows, be able to do the European festivals, and they're a great live band. They sound great. Wolf is a great guitarist, and killer tone, and they're a well-oiled machine live. I mean, that's all the YouTube footage I've been watching is very impressive, and I'm looking forward to being a part of it. It's just going to be, I think, something that's good for everybody. It's kind of a fun little window for the fans to see me hop in and play with them, and it works out great for me, because I, would obviously prefer that to sitting on my couch at home or something like that.
Sure.
So, or for that matter, playing smaller shows. So having the opportunity to get out and, be seen and play with a great sounding live band like Accept is, like you said, it makes a lot of sense, and just worked out great, like it was meant to be in a way.
You said a few minutes ago, obviously Whitesnake is on a bit of a hiatus, but do you still check with David Coverdale when these other opportunities come up, and try to clear any commitments like with him, and hey, I might have this thing coming up where you want to do something, blah blah blah?
Yeah, absolutely, all the time. David and I, he's big on clarity, so I appreciate that very much, and I think that's a lot of times where things go awry with relationships and bands, just being like very professional about things. So I'm always checking in with David about what's happening, and like, look, this is what's coming down, and how do you feel about this? I think we could, I think certainly under the circumstances of it not being I'm quitting Whitesnake to join Accept, but just merely filling in, there's that's nothing that ruffles David's feathers. It's been quite the opposite. I mean, he's being very supportive, and like, that's fantastic. I'm happy for you. And No, he's somebody that I keep in touch with on a regular basis. David and I are in constant contact, and I did go out and spend some time with him last year and work on some box set stuff with him. And there might be some more of that this year. So it's not like we're not still active in some capacity, and you know, whatever his vision is and what he wants to do with Whitesnake, I'd like to remain a part of that. And I think, as he put it in one of the texts, he said, "I value us," and I said, "I value us too, man." You know, like he's been fantastic to me, and I have you know, I don't want to be presumptuous, but like a nice friendship with him as well, in addition to just merely, you know, working for him. We get along really well. I have a lot of respect for David, and I think that's all he was ever really looking for upon me joining the band, is just somebody who showed the proper respect to the Whitesnake brand, represented it properly, and you know, didn't have any delusions of grandeur, or you know, overstepped their bounds or acted in any way unprofessional. And so I've understood like how to do my best for him, and he's been fantastic to me.
Obviously, you know, there's no plans or anything, but if something were to happen, I mean, is it possible something could happen in 2024, or if something does happen, are we a year or two at least away from that?
You know, I mean, you know as much as I do with that. So we're in constant contact on the band thread, but it's a lot like his Twitter feed, where it's like, you know, the memes, etc., kind of humor based, and everybody knows it's an unspoken thing that, look, this is, if we're doing something, it's going to come from David. So none of us are on there going, so hey, come on, man, you know, like, let's go. And all of us would love it, I'm sure, if we got out and we did something. The way that the farewell tour closed was in a way like very epic, because the last gig that we played was Hellfest, and Steve Vai joined us on the last song of that, and that was kind of like a, you know, a really fun moment to have Steve come on stage and join us and play with us. And but it also feels in a way like we didn't have proper closure. So we'll see if we end up getting back out there and able to, I guess, have a more natural ending to the farewell tour. But that's entirely David's call, and he has my full support on whatever he chooses to do regarding that.
Well, one more thing on Accept before we move on. I know a couple of weeks ago this was still sort of up in the air and undecided, but since both yourself and Accept will be on the Monsters of Rock cruise here in about a month or so, will you be playing with them at all during that, or is that still sort of being figured out?
I think we're going to take the opportunity for me to just watch the show twice, and I'll have the in-ear pack so I can listen to the guitarists. Phil will be on the cruise playing with them, and it gives me an opportunity to listen to his mix in my in-ears and watch them do the show. You know, there are staging things that happen with Accept, where, you know, and with all bands really for that matter, where you have to be in a certain spot for a certain solo, or
sure, certain
spot for a certain song, you know, cross the stage, you know, go to this spot for this song. And it gives me an opportunity to, you know, I'm gonna roll like on their gear to have things remain consistent and play the famous V's that they play as a band, and you know, use the Kempers that they play through. And so it gives me an opportunity to get familiar with the gear a bit. I think that, you know, maybe having me step out for a song or something like that on Monsters of Rock cruise, the cruises are not always the best as far as, like, you know, getting a nice long sound check and things like that, because there's lots of things happening, and God forbid anything for that one song was not ideal. That probably wouldn't be the greatest thing for, you know, the world we live in with social media and everything, to be like, you know, this is the first appearance. So I think we're gonna keep the curtain down until South America on that, and just use that as like a learning ground for myself, just to be able to familiarize myself with their show.
I want to quickly talk about your time playing for Cher, because you end up joining her band right around the time David Coverdale was having knee surgery. So your schedule was open. But how did that whole thing come about? I would imagine that you knew somebody that knew somebody in her camp, and you got recommended to take the gig.
Yeah, it was really Justin Derrico who plays guitar for Pink and The Voice, and the other guitarist on The Voice, Dave Barry, was Cher's guitarist, and he said, "Man, I'm going to need somebody to fill in." And I had just hit Justin up because David was having the knee surgery done, and so Justin said, "Hey, I know this is going to sound weird, but how about Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake? He understands how to play all different styles, even though he's kind of known for doing the Whitesnake thing." And so I just told Dave, "Look, I'll learn the show like note for note the way you play it, and go in and do it." And so that's how things got started. And it was supposed to really just be a couple shows, and then ended up really turning into a few years, which is kind of crazy.
And how was it playing for her? Because you hear stories of guys like Nuno Betancourt from Extreme, who obviously played with Rihanna for many years, and he speaks incredibly highly of her, the gig itself, and how much freedom he was allowed to have, and injecting his style into the songs, and even doing some soloing from time to time. But then obviously there's the other side of it, where perhaps it's a decent salary, but outside of that, the gig isn't really all that it's cracked up to be, and it's not really a fun experience.
I mean, the Cher gig is primarily Cher down front with dancers, and the band is in the background on a bandstand. And then there's two moments where I would step out with her for songs, the rock songs, and I would kind of be the only one out there with her for those. And so those were big moments. And then there was another moment where I would step out and play a segment of a song, Bang Bang, where it was a wardrobe change for her, right? I have to kind of hold the audience. And so those moments were the really kind of big, high profile, very important moments. The main thing that was fun for me was kind of having a moment to step outside of just like the metal or hard rock genre and get back to a lot of other styles that I know how to play, because her music spanned really 5 decades. So,
Sure.
You're playing disco and pop and I don't know, all kinds of different styles on that. So that was a lot of fun for me too. And it was a great band, and they're very, very talented musicians. So for me, it was a great experience across the board.
Well, obviously it didn't end up, working out because of scheduling conflicts and things like that. But was there ever a moment in time where you considered making Cher your full-time gig?
Not really. I mean, I kind of advised against hiring me when they were trying to hire me, because I was saying, well, I mean, when David is back out, I'm going to prioritize Whitesnake because, I'm on the shirt, I'm on the album. Sure. When you play for a pop artist, people are buying the tickets to see Cher, and for the most part, you're just, you're the backing band, et cetera. And you might have a couple amazing moments of stepping out, and this is the nature of the gig. I'm not complaining. That's just that's what the gigs are, And then with Trans-Siberian, that's something that I've been a part of for years and probably will be around for years. So I had to really kind of prioritize that as well. So like you said, there were scheduling conflicts, especially in 2019, where I ended up being on the road 285 days out of that year between those three, trying to juggle the three things. So she was very gracious in 2019, and I was only there half of the time, and she kind of stuck with me. And then when 2020, before we all knew COVID was going to be a thing, I was only really available for about 20% of the shows, because Whitesnake had a really big year, and TSO was going to have obviously another big year. And, things just weren't looking good at that point in time. And then COVID came and everything was null and void anyway. So,
what I find so interesting about you and your career is that, a lot of guys, mainly ones that, experienced success in the 80s, which obviously you were a little young in those days, but, you're associated with that style, I guess. But, most of the guys from that era, they attribute their downfall to Nirvana and all that kind of stuff coming out of Seattle, which is right around the time that you had graduated from the Guitar Institute of Technology. So everybody was sort of, like anti-shred at that point. But you've said before that it was really one of the best things that could have happened to you, because you couldn't fall back on your chops. You had to become an even better musician just to be able to get work, which is just very remarkable.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the best things that happened to me, was not being able to just fall back on that and kind of going through the strange trajectory of doing things like working with the Turtles and Big Brother and the Holding Company, and playing with a gazillion singer-songwriters, playing with acid jazz bands, playing with hip hop bands, all kinds of stuff that people would never imagine would happen. I don't have the same history as the people that we talked about earlier, where they were a little bit older and found fame and success playing hard rock or heavy metal in their early 20s. So for me, it ended up taking all the way until the 80s resurgence happened, where things really took off for me. I'm sorry, I'm just letting, I have an interview following this.
Oh, Jesus, sorry.
No, it's all good.
We can get this wrapped up. Sorry about that.
No worries, brother. All good. I just want to, out of courtesy, let the next person know that I'm a little late. That's all.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
Well, then I guess just to wrap this up, one thing I did want to get to that I did find interesting too is that you said before that you had set a goal early on to be more of a professional guitar player as opposed to the typical dream of being a rock star. Why is that? Is it because by the time you were old enough to really pursue a career, that style was kind of falling by the wayside, or were you trying to mainly avoid the many pitfalls associated with stardom, drugs and alcohol, all that kind of stuff? Or where did that thought process come from?
I think just because my parents are professional musicians, and growing up in an area where like fame or being a rock star seemed like unattainable, and realistically, it kind of is in a way. I mean, it's the idea of that happening and taking off is a long shot for people. So, the fact that it worked out through hard work and just kind of taking things step by step, I have been able to do a lot of really fun things where. I mean, all of those labels are always relative. Like I said, I can be in our microcosm, our small world at NAMM, and feel like, well, I've made a name for myself. And then I can step outside in the general world here and walk around and remain largely unrecognized, or,
Sure.
have no one know who I am. So does it apply or doesn't it? I have no idea. But I think it's much better to approach things as a pro and just like pro guitarist. And then if that label fits, or if that's the what we're doing out there, then great, because I certainly enjoy that a ton. I mean, who wouldn't? The opportunity to play on stage with Whitesnake and things like that, where you're larger than life and theatrical and
Sure.
big, and David loves all that. So I mean, it's a great opportunity and lots of fun to be able to do that.
Well, as we wrap this up, outside of everything that we talked about, what else is going on in your world for 2024?
I mean, you mentioned the Revolution Saints record. I'll be counseling at Rock and Roll Fantasy Camp in both February and March. People can look into those coming up. I'll be doing lots of acoustic duo gigs with my friend Brandon Gibbs in the U.S. We're going to be all over. We're doing a U.K. tour and possibly Japan in the fall. You mentioned all the Accept shows happening in South America and in the European festival circuit. And then, of course, there's the Trans-Siberian Orchestra tour. And in addition to that, I'm currently writing my next Joel Hoekstra's 13 album, which we didn't get to really talk about today. But the project Iconic that I have as well with Frontiers, with Michael Sweet and my Whitesnake bandmate Tommy Aldridge, Nathan James, Marco Mendoza. We'll be doing another one of those records this year as well. So busy year.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, check out the brand new Revolution Saints record, Against the Wind, when it drops February 9th. Check Joel out with Accept in South America and Europe later this year. Joel, thanks so much for doing this, and sorry to run a little late here, but appreciate you coming on, man. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for your time.